Paul Jones, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay. We will get started with this commission meeting of the Utah County Commission. Once we don't have feedback. Testing, that work? Yep, that's much better. All right, we will get started with the meeting of the Utah County Board of Commissioners for January 25th, 2023. We typically start these meetings with a prayer, thought, or reading, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have anybody from the audience who is willing to give us a prayer, thought, or reading, or to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, just by a raise of hand? Got one? Okay, would you like to do the prayer, thought, or reading, or the pledge? Prayer? Okay. Be thinking about who wants to do the pledge while he's praying.
Our Father in heaven, we ask for a portion of thy Spirit to be here in these proceedings, that things might be done in wisdom and in truth and in understanding, to be helpful for the people that it will affect. And we ask again for understanding and generosity and care and compassion in these proceedings. In the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Do you mind telling us your name for the record? Alan Platt. Thank you. All right, do we have a volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, thank you.
Audience, please rise. Repeat after me, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, first what we will do is build our consent agenda. So we'll go through all of the agenda items that have consensus among the three of us and don't need any further discussion. We will have on the consent agenda, and then everything else we will put on the regular agenda prior to the work session. All right, so on items 1 through 10, do we have any items that need to be held or continued or stricken?
Item 7 was missing a name. That's blank.
Yep.
Do we need to
So
have any discussion on that, Rob?
That's for the UAC representative. If you have a name, you can insert it now, or we can discuss it.
yeah, I think we have a consensus. It was going to be Commissioner Sakovic.
Okay,
So let's put that on there and leave it on the consent agenda.
thank you.
And then we'll need to swear you in right after this meeting, since we're headed straight to the UAC board meeting. I had no others on 1 through 10 either.
I'm good.
Okay.
Item 15,
Okay.
we should hold that. And item number 19, there's a correction to the naming, who the grant is going to be given to.
Right. So there's going to be a correction. So instead of the National VFW American Legion, it's American Legion Post 313 or 13?
A little bit longer. It's Dean Mendenhall, Provo, Post 13, the American Legion. So it's a little bit.
He will get you that. We'll get you that.
If,
Yes. Also, on item number 13, I would like to hold that as well. Okay. 20 through 29.
I have none.
No, I have none on it. Okay.
Amen.
Right. 30 through 39.
None.
I have none for me.
Okay. 40 through 48.
I have none.
Okay.
None there either.
And then I believe we need to hold 49 and 50, but we can strike 51 and 52. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
When you're ready, Alice, if you want to go back through that.
Okay. I have us holding regular agenda items number 7.
7, we put the name on, but it can go on consent.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Once we add Tom.
Once we add Tom, it can go on consent. We just need to add Commissioner Tom Sakovich as the name,
Oh, okay,
but we don't need to hold it.
okay. Apologize for that. Okay. And then holding 13, 15, 19. And then as far as closed meetings, I have us holding as stated 49 and 50 and striking 51 and 52.
That is what I had as well.
That's good.
Okay. With that, we will move on to our work session. We have a presentation on the Vivian Park Master Plan.
Richard Dilson, Public Works. Last year, we hired FFKR Architect to do a master plan study for Vivian Park. It's a park that the county has owned for about 50 years up in Provo Canyon, right where you turn off to Southport. Park was actually originally built with the development up there that's where the Vivian Park homes are. It was done in conjunction with that back in the 19-teens. The county came into ownership in the early 1970s. But we've got the team from FFKR. We've got Susan and Abe here that are going to talk to us a little bit about, tell us what they did as their team in getting the public input, and then what that resulted in as far as the plan that they're going to present to us today for your discussion. If we have questions or comments, we're happy to take those, and then this will be on at a later meeting for action by the commission to adopt this or some subsequent version of this. So I'm going to turn it over to the FFKR team.
Hello, I'm Susan Petheram with FFKR.
And I'm Abe Nelson.
So our outline of the presentation is just a condensed version of the master plan book that was attached to the agenda and meeting items. We'll do a quick project overview, cover some of the outreach, and then able to take us through the concept design, highlighting some of those natural and passive features, as well as the program and active features. And then we'll touch a little bit on our parking strategy and design for the park, as well as the connections to the Provo River Trail, and then talk a little bit about phasing. So the project overview, as we started working with Public Works, the conceptual design was the end product, but the 4 things that we wanted to focus on based on their direction was thinking specifically about access and connections, both within the park and to the trail and the surrounding neighborhood and roadways. And then thinking about circulation, how people, as well as people in their cars or trucks or trailers, can better circulate around the park, which is a little bit of a tight fit currently. Thinking about specific amenity updates, what did people want to see improved in the park as part of this master plan, and then thinking about the phasing, how we put it all together, and like how long it might take to pull all of the different upgrades. So for the public outreach, there was 6 things that sort of rose to the top from both the public and the county for feedback. The enhanced water access was something that both the general community and the county wanted to see. Same with the parking and improved circulation. Something that we heard a little bit more from the public is about improving the amenities for that bike path through the park, as well as adjacent to the Provo River Trail, and how many people use that to bike in the canyon. The updated playgrounds, some of the equipment is in decent shape and some of it could use some upgrades. And then really connecting the trails and pathways in the park and making that circulation for people on foot or on their bikes a little bit more accessible. And then the amenities that we heard from the public, some new furniture, picnic tables and pavilions, some of those basic upgrades to give the park a little bit of a refresh. For the outreach process, we did 3 different types of outreach. We started off with an online town hall, invited the neighbors, the broader community. We did great social media and analog noticing, put out some yard signs, tried to get on a lot of different communities' Facebook pages, as well as reached out to some of the local universities, because we know that this is a park that's used and loved by a pretty broad range of people. The second item that we had was an online survey that we kept active for quite a while. Over the time that we had it open, we got at least 252 respondents. And I think that number went up a little bit throughout the rest of the year as people still came back to it. But overall, with the town hall, the survey, and then the third platform was an online idea board where people could just go in and see the concept plans on their own time, leave comments, suggestions, ideas. But we tallied almost 4,000 comments between all of those different methods. One of the key things that we found out is that people use the park pretty frequently. Almost 2/3 of the people that responded to our online survey are there using the park at least once or twice a month, and almost 25% are there weekly. So that was great news to hear, that the people love the park and are using it. The primary concerns that we heard through our outreach was safety was the big one. I think just some of those conflicts between people on foot or on bike, the cars and trailers that are going through the area, and then just as well as accessing some of the features. Even though the park is not supporting the river, a lot of people that use the river for tubing or other enjoyment are coming into the park and launching or, decamping from the river at the park, and safety was a concern. Having more furniture, some of the benches, having some safety regarding cyclists specifically, and reducing some of the conflict with pedestrians and cars. And then just things like shade, keeping it from getting too busy. People love the park, but if too many people are trying to use it at once, then it sort of counteracts the peaceful nature of it. And then just making sure that general maintenance and upkeep of the park is taken care of. The top 10 reasons that people come to the park, the number one was the Provo River Trail and accessing or using the trail from the park. And then using it for access to other amenities in the canyon. But within the park itself, people use the picnic areas, the playgrounds, and the fishing in the pond. So lots of great use of the park, and that was great to see. Overall, I think the big takeaway is that people wanted to see a balance between the peaceful nature of the park in its mountain canyon setting, and then being able to use the park in an active way and having different play features. So with the program and the concept design that we came up with, it was a balance between those. So having several program and active features, and that being a pretty big component of the park, but making sure that the majority of the space in the park was reserved for more of those natural and passive features. And I'll just have Abe take you through a little bit of the final concept design and some of the features.
Thank you, Susie. So what you're going to see here is basically a pretty picture form of what Susie just described in narrative, so I won't bore you too much with too many words. But as she said, that the big thing was really the parking, the circulation, and the safety, and how we could fix that. It is very difficult at the current moment with the bisecting the two halves of the park with a major road that kind of is very busy, and trying to, kids running across back and forth between the two. So we went through a couple different iterations and versions of a roundabout, no roundabout, parking on street, no on-street parking. And what we really wanted to do is make sure that what parking we did provide, it was functional, and that people could get in there with a trailer or a big truck and be able to turn around. Right now it's dead-end parking for the most part on half of that parking. The other is kind of removed off the street, which gives a little bit of a false sense of security and allows people to just drive through at high speeds. And so we wanted to calm traffic, and thus the roundabout option that kind of rose to the top in the location that you're seeing here. So this does provide I guess I can't point with the laser, can I? It provides an ample amount of parking. Obviously, you're never going to provide parking on Easter Sunday for everyone and their dog, but we do have the functional parking aspects to it, and as well as the roundabout, which is a safer way for pedestrians to be able to cross back and forth and calm that traffic that's coming through. This map here shows basically the zones, as Susie mentioned. There's a lot of passive area, places where people can come. It's not programmed, a typical program park where you have certain things that you go and you do, right? But it gives people an opportunity to come throw a frisbee, kick a ball, hang out in the mountains. And that's kind of the darker green area, I guess. Could have been a different color green to make it easy to read, but we like green in the parks, right? So the other is the more the active areas. So the active areas are kind of focused to the right or the east side over by the river. This is where you do get some play elements. You get some of the pavilions and areas where larger groups may gather, family reunions and bigger activities like that. And then we kept most of the passive to the west side that as a buffer up against that existing community. We know that noise and there's some other issues associated with large groups and gatherings, and so we wanted to maintain that buffer of more of a passive area to the west. This one, it's probably kind of hard to see for most people in here, but it kind of goes through all the different elements in the program. And on the left side, how we're retaining a lot of those landscape areas and the buffers. We're creating access down to the river. Right now, it's cow trails for the most part. People make their own access to the river, so it's not safe. It's not great. And so in place of that, we provide some gabion seat walls and access stairs, kind of big amphitheater style down to the river to give people that access should they want it in a safer manner. We do suggest some ideas of creating something a little nicer out of that fish ladder access, something a little more natural, something that could be an educational component as opposed to just a strictly engineered thing right now that may not be understood by a lot of people. And then just keeping some open space there. There is as Susie mentioned, the Provo River Trail that goes along the tracks, and we do have kind of a bigger, wider pathway that comes down through into the park that you'll see on our next plan, but that's kind of the big main pathway that comes through. And so there is a station area right there, the other circle next to the roundabout, where people on bikes, there'd be repair stations and things of that nature where they can rest, they can fix their bike, they can kind of gather in an area off the path, and so they're not in the way of other walkers or runners or pedestrians. And then as you go to the east side there over towards the water, again, the water access was a big deal. We wanted to try and provide more of a feature. There's a pump system that circulates the water in and out of this pond, and so we wanted to make that into a feature instead of just a sad little rusted pipe, and give, again, a place for people to gather and to kind of hang out and enjoy the mountain scenery and the water. We do end up moving the restroom in this option as well. That was another major issue, is just the accessibility. It's kind of perched up on this high knob of a hill. Artificially, because there were some pumps and other mechanical equipment down below that wasn't needed anymore. So we do suggest moving that restroom, fixing some of the grading, making it a little more easy to access the trails and the open space and seating areas. This does also provide a new pavilion, orientates it a little better, puts it up next to the parking so people don't have to haul large amounts of picnic supplies and materials across big lawn areas, but they can park relatively close and load and unload their vehicle. And then we do have also some additional fire pit areas that are a little bit safer than what's there now. So we provide some clearance areas around it, gravel, concrete, to be able to contain it. I know fire was a concern of some of the comments that we received online as well. So we want to do that in a safe manner. And then as you go further to the right, there's a little bit of a pier shown that comes out into the water, again, for access to the water, for people to get closer to it, to fish from. Enjoy those kind of activities, and then some of your play elements up on the upper right there, where we'd have the play equipment and playgrounds broken into different levels of user age and ability. If I can go to the next slide, I think I'm going to have to zoom back out. These are just some character imagery of some of the ways to get steps down to access the water, some of the piers and the docks going out into the water, the features that we can do with the circulation systems, picnic tables, hammock gardens, different seating opportunities and gathering of small groups, large groups throughout the various spaces. Showing some of the suggested types of play equipment, again, sticking with the more natural, the woods and the rocks and boulders, kind of tying it more to that mountain theme. And then some pavilion and shade structures and crosswalks, roundabouts, ways to help calm traffic. This is just talks about some of that parking strategy and design, some of the circulation patterns for vehicles, keeping and maintaining that through flow for the parking lots and traffic calming measures. And then some of the trail connections from the pedestrian and bike access as well. The orange line being kind of that bypass that we're showing for people on bikes or walking or jogging that can kind of come access the park. We do also, one thing I failed to mention previously was on the upper right, we do move the train access. So there are some improvements being made to the train stop ticket booth location. So it would now be kind of on that west side. And so it's by the parking, kind of, again, the active side of everything. A little bit more program side would be on that west side. And then this does talk just a little bit about phasing, understanding obviously that there's only so many funds and things, but doing it in a way that makes sense, that the park is still usable during construction, that can be built out in a manageable way over the years as funds become available for various program elements. I think that was it. Susie, did I miss anything you want to add to it, or?
Nope, I think just to kind of clarify on the phases, most of the amenities and upgrades we've broken out into 3 different phases that we felt represented sort of an equal budget request from the commission for the Public Works Department to get in there and make some of these upgrades. So those would be led and funded by Utah County. So most of those upgrades. 2 additional phases are focused more on making that redesign of the fish ladder happen. And because of the nature of that feature, that's something that would be led by the county, but would be in partnership and coordination with both state and federal partners. So something that would hopefully be a partner effort from funding, but as well as just getting all of the right regulatory agencies to approve and contribute to the redesign of that feature. So that's something that it's broken down into 2 additional phases beyond the primary upgrades to the park. That's it. I don't know if Richard or Kate, if you have anything that you want to add at this point, or if there's questions, happy to answer.
Maybe just a couple of thoughts, just so that you're aware of kind of the bigger picture, some of the stuff that's outside of the scope that we had FFKR look at. There's the project that's happening, but beginning at the park and moving up canyon with the Provo Canyon Parkway Trail. That does involve realigning the rails here at the park and moving the trail going on up the canyon between the railroad and the river. So it puts it on the opposite side of the railroad to help eliminate railroad crossings for trail users, but you can still access the park at the west end or where South Fork Road comes in. You can access it at either location there like that. That's a separate project that is planned to start construction this coming spring, but it's outside of the scope of what these guys were looking at, but they did include the plans as they were doing the look at what we could do on the park here. The second part of that, this goes back probably 20 or 25 years. When the county acquired the rights for the railroad corridor between Vivian Park and Bridleville Falls, because the train used to go down to Bridleville, the county acquired that about 25 years ago. Well, part of the agreement that the county signed at that point in time, in order to get that, we did agree with the Heber Valley Railroad that at the point in time that they would like to do it, they can put a turntable for the locomotive on the park. There's an area just to that west end as it starts to narrow down west of that pavilion on the west side that can fit. We did not have them show it in this plan, but because we don't know when or if the Heber Valley Railroad will do that. But there is a space there that it can fit. So that's something that the county's contractually obligated to should the railroad decide they want to do that. But we've left space available, but we decided not to show it in the park master plan. So, any questions for us?
A lot of work in the last couple of years.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I believe there are some members of the public here that are probably interested. I know one of them sitting here on the front row that you may want to hear from them as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name's Reed Dixon. I'm with the Vivian Park Homeowners Association. I live right there with the housing area that's next to this. I probably represent, if you count up all the family members, over 300 people who live or use those homes right there in Vivian Park. And so I've been up there for over 30 years, raised our children there, built a house there. We love that place, right? So we're interested, and we've looked through these plans, and we want to thank, we've had commissioners in the car driving around. We've had Glenn and Richard come up in an evening to our homes and meet with the HOA and show us plans and hear us complain and be patient with all the different opinions. So we're very thankful for how this works. You know, normally government gets a bad rap, but Utah County does pretty well.
Yeah, when I was a citizen of the county without a city, I found the same thing, that the county was very responsive. That was before I was an elected official. So thank you for sharing that.
So the outreach worked well. There was an initial plan that had all kinds of ideas, and then there was an outreach, and we see that we've been heard. So there's a lot of open green areas and various things that were mentioned in those back and forth town hall meetings, and so we see a lot of response. We're glad for that. So we do have some comments. We think there's some efficiencies that could be had with asphalt surface ratio of parking achieved. So with less asphalt in this plan, you could probably achieve even more parking spaces with a different configuration. So if we want to have more green space and more areas for recreation and reduce the amount of asphalt, I think there is some opportunity there. There's some travel ways that are single loaded with parking versus double loaded with parking. So that's one comment. One other major comment is you can see a spur or a section of railroad track that is right next to the small bathroom on the downstream side of the park. There were discussions in the early stages of the Heber Valley Railroad redesign that they would be redoing their track on the right side of the map there, and then removing track on the left side and basically ceding property to the park. And so there's a section of rail there that's going to be removed, and it was discussed that park fence would be moved closer to the river and in essence enlarge that area. So we're hoping that can still happen.
Have there been any discussions of that? Which triggers something in my mind that I'm wondering if we've taken into account. I did get feedback from some citizens a few months ago about the fact that the Heber Valley Railroad, because all of the ticket sales happen in Wasatch County, all of the revenues from the taxes go to Wasatch County, but that railroad stops and everybody uses our bathroom that we pay to maintain. So I didn't know if there's any been discussions on that as well, which reminded me of that, so thank you.
So to answer Reed's comment there, there has been discussion. It has not been decided for sure what will happen with that. That's why we didn't show it in the master plan. But
there is flexibility in the master plan to
correct.
accommodate? Okay.
One thing to think about, this is a 10,000-foot view. This is not a construction drawing type view. This is
Okay.
there's a lot of flexibility here, and we appreciate the comment that Reed has there. That will be something that as we go through the project for the trail going up the canyon and the relocation of the railroad, if that property is available, then yes, we will incorporate that into the park. Maybe to answer your question, Commissioner, about the use of the restroom. Historically, it's been done. No, we do not get any revenue for it. So
That's something we should probably discuss with them. Maybe like a maintenance share, make it maintenance cost share or something. Okay. Anyway, sorry, this is exactly why we want these comments.
Heber
so we
Valley
can discuss
Railroad
it.
customers park here too, so sometimes they'll get on. I know when they do Halloween rides, people will load here and go back the other way and then come back to where they parked. So there could be some participation from those guys. We're hoping that all the large mature trees, there are some that are more beautiful than others, but we're hoping that most of them can be preserved in this plan because it looks like the entire park is being redone, so it might make you think that there's going to be regrading, and so hopefully those can be preserved. Yeah, I think everyone's probably in favor of that, but some are more attractive or more valuable than others. And then there's a portion of the park that's not really shown on these maps. There's a little bridge that crosses South Fork, and then there's an area on the other side that's not shown in color between the homes and what's shown in color that's not on here. And it's relatively small, but it is very quaint and very valuable, and people use it a lot because it's well shaded and kind of secluded. It's also valuable because it's right along the backyards of all those homes. And I don't know that any of them are here, but we've spoken with all those people, and we appreciate that the active areas are on the other side of the park because there's been noise complaints and fire complaints and smoke and bad language or whatever people do. And so it's nice that the passive area is next to the homes and the active is farther away from the homes. That's smart. So we're hoping that that small area can be enhanced with some screening, whether it be fencing or vegetative or whatever, so that the park and the homes coexist a little bit better. And then the last overall thing is Vivian Park is very beautiful all by itself. It was probably the most beautiful before we got here. So the whole canyon is a beautiful, natural, pristine mountain canyon. And so the tendency for improving a park in the valley, where it's a little bit dry, a little bit arid, a little bit blank, is to improve it with everything and to turn it from, the desert to the rose kind of idea. But this guy, because it's in the canyon, it's already got a ton of natural capital. The views are spectacular of the mountains. The river is beautiful all on its own. And so we feel like this plan is a little bit too much. It's too much of a good thing almost, which it's hard to complain when it's so grandiose with all of these wonderful things. But as we go through here, I added it up, and the budget for this that's in here, I know it's rough. It's hard to cost things, but it's over $3.5 million. And so I don't know that any of us in this room would ever program our own backyard this rich. I know mine's not. Mine's a lot more basic than this. And so I just feel like it's got a lot of good ideas, and maybe we kept all the good ideas, and we just have to prioritize and maybe not do everything. The park and the canyon are already very beautiful. Most people who use this park, because we see it every day, winter, spring, summer, fall, all of it, most people lay on the grass, play Frisbee, let their children run around. They hammock from the trees that are already there. And none of them use the horseshoe pit. And very infrequently, they use the facilities like the volleyball. The pavilions are used quite a bit. And that's another thing, is that existing pavilion the existing pavilion is so close to the proposed pavilion, it makes me wonder, couldn't we save some money and just refurbish the existing one? And so I'm just looking for opportunities to not spend the full $3.5 million, because that's a lot of money, and to use the natural capital that's already there and broaden things out so there's more space to actually do things. The left side looks awesome. The right side is a little bit densified with programming. So those are our comments. We hope to continue to have input and to review these plans, because this is the first concept, I think, pretty much, and it has preliminary and final and more iterations to go. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come. Okay. Any other comments on this issue?
Hi, my name's Kathy Worthen, and we have a place up South Fork, so just up the road from the park. And I also appreciate the redo of the original plan. This is definitely an improvement over a lot of those things that we felt were taking away a lot of the nature aspect of the park. So, and as Reed said, maybe we haven't gone quite far enough back to the original, but I appreciate the efforts to do that. I think some of the main concerns with this park really are the traffic and the parking issues, which that's got to be what we can fix with this redo. I'm wondering, because I can't really visualize too much about size, but this roundabout on extremely busy, especially holiday weekend days, traffic coming from South Fork to get back on the highway to go back down the canyon sometimes backs up from the highway clear to South Fork Park, which is about 2.5 miles up the road. And you can sit in that line for 45 minutes to an hour just to get to the highway. And the problem there is that they put in a merging lane, so you can merge onto, if you're going down the canyon from the park, there's a lane that you can get into and merge to get back on the highway to go down the canyon, but most people don't know that. And so they'll sit and wait until there's a break on both sides and sit there for a long time, and it backs the traffic up really a lot. My concern with the roundabout is on those days when that traffic is backed up, will that roundabout still be functional? Will people still be able to come into it and out of it, and it also goes into the parking lot? I don't know. That's just, I don't know if anyone's really thought that through, and it doesn't happen every day, but about every weekend it does. So that's a concern. And I'm hoping they talked about trucks and trailers. I'm just hoping that the roundabout isn't going to restrict big vehicles that need to get up the canyon for some reason. And what about snow removal? I know there's a bump that's planned, and this roundabout doesn't seem very snowplow friendly, but those were some of my concerns with that whole traffic thing. But I really appreciate the fact that the parking lot, which I kind of agree, there's probably a more efficient way perhaps to do it, but one of the really important things that it does is allow an in and out, where right now it's horrible with one entrance exit. That's great to see that go away, but again, there could be a better maybe way to lay that out. And I might be wrong because I just started looking at the plan today, but it seems to me like the parking and traffic flow is really one of the major issues with the park. And I think in the phasing that the parking lot is last. I'm wondering if that's a smart thing to do. I mean, if we need to fix that, can it be fixed sooner than all the little amenities that are, I think, going in first? And I noticed that one of the things that most people say they use in the park are the pavilions and picnic areas. And I don't know if when they say it's a picnic area on the thing, if that's one table or if it's a group of tables. I don't know. But it looks to me like we don't have a lot of picnic tables, but we have hammock structures, which I don't think are going to be very utilized. And I would just think that maybe picnic areas might be better use for that area. But I wouldn't I would make sure that we have at least as much picnicking furniture that in the new design as we do now. The pavilion right now is rather big. The picture which I'm sure is not, an exact what they're thinking, but it looks smaller and it doesn't look like it has as many places to sit. I would just make sure that we have as many at least as we have now, and probably beef that up and have more picnic area, because I think that's one of the things that people really do utilize in the park. Yeah, I think that's everything that I had to say. So thank you. It will be nice it's nice that the county has this on their radar, because it's definitely something that will enhance the community. So thanks.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay. Any other comments on this issue? Just this issue. Yep.
Maybe I can just kind of finish up real quick with it.
Yeah.
What we're looking at from the commission, and we don't need an answer today, but we would like you to kind of review the comments. Glenn and Kate have been taking notes on the comments from the public.
Great.
We'll get with FFKR, but if you guys can kind of look it over in the next week or two, let us know any things you would like us to review. And then once we're comfortable with a final version of this, then we'll plan on putting it back on for consideration to have the master plan adopted.
Okay.
So that's our next steps.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, we'll move into our regular agenda from the work session now. And the first item we have is item number 13. So my question on this one, the reason I asked this to be held is, I know we got bids on this last year, but I didn't know if we had bids on this year, and I don't know if the bids were for a multi-year term or just 1 year.
And this, just to be certain, this is the Sunset Farmers Market, the vendor management agreement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have the same questions on the next one.
Oh,
but
yeah, I
it's-
got you in the next one, too.
Yeah.
On this one, the pricing structure is unique. The vendors pay the contractor directly, and then we get a cut. We get 50% of those vendor.
Right.
And so it was around 10,000 last year.
Right.
Lisa Shepherd is not here, and so she'd be the one to ask. I'm not sure.
Remind me of the with the 50% cut. Was it? It wasn't anywhere near the $50,000, right?
Not even close.
And
Around
this contract,
10,000.
was this a multi-year contract or
No,
just 1 year?
it's 1 year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because I didn't see any information attached for bids for this year, and so I'm wondering in my memory, was that a multi-year bid last year?
It was not. It was a single year last year as well.
Okay. I think that answers my question.
Okay.
So I would feel most comfortable if we continue this, just my fellow commissioners, because according to the procurement rules, yeah?
Can I talk to that for a second?
Yeah.
I mean, assuming you get to 15 and move on, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we've done is we went and found someone that would do this instead of in the past. We had someone that did the food booths, and then we just kind of let the vendors come in. I thought
Right.
last year was one of the most successful years we've had.
Right.
With vendors, there's not a lot of people, I don't think, when we can put out an RFP and see what we can find. However, we would like to start selling our booths February 1st.
Right.
So if we could move that along, it'd be very
Right, but I understand
helpful.
what you're asking us to do is to break state procurement law and
Well,
approve a contract that didn't have bids. So I totally understand. I think you guys
No,
did a
no, no,
fantastic job, and I appreciate that. But we have a process that you have to get bids for anything over $2,500. This is over $2,500. We got bids last year, but they were only for a 1-year term, and that doesn't go. And so I think they did a fantastic job. I fully support them. I'm just trying to follow procurement laws.
I'm not sure. Did we get bids last year?
I don't remember getting bids for
I
it
don't know
last
if we
year.
got bids last year either.
We're not.
Okay.
We're not paying them. They're paying us. They're just
So
doing
the vendor
job.
gets so the coordinator gets zero money?
No, they get.
They collect all the money for the vendors. They keep half and give us half.
Okay, Robert, do you want to, how does that work with procurement law?
Commissioner, before he walks away, let's get his name.
Oh, yeah, what was your name?
And this other gentleman needs to
I know
not
you're Craig.
comment.
Okay.
That's Mike.
That's Mike. Okay.
And what's your name, sir?
Craig Conover.
Thank you. Thank you.
Robert Baxter, procurement manager, purchasing manager. When determining the thresholds for when it requires bids or not, or an RFP, it's not just what it costs the county, it's the value of the contract.
Okay.
And in this case, if the value of the contract is over, and $5,000 is actually the threshold for requiring bids.
Okay.
So if the value of the contract to the vendor is over $5,000, then we should be getting competitive bids for it. $50,000 is the threshold for requiring an RFP.
Okay.
I mean, there is an exemption for entertainment. I personally, I don't know that this really fits that category.
Okay.
To speak to that a little bit, this is part of the totality of the entertainment. So this was supposed to be part of the objectiveness of whether or not something is over that may not necessarily be needed in a normal RFP process because it is so objective.
So, I mean, I voted on that change, and I would disagree. I think the change, we made an exception for entertainment, and I didn't know that, and I wouldn't have agreed that vendors are entertainment. I don't think we gave just a blanket exception for all things county fair. I thought it was specifically for entertainment for the county fair, and that was because of the nature of the entertainment that we book for the county fair. So I think you guys did a fantastic job last year. But I remember raising these exact same concerns 1 year ago, where we kind of gave it an exception because we were on a short timeline, we moved forward, but I was very specific in a public meeting that was an exception, but we need to do a better job of crossing our T's and dotting our I's because we are stewards of the public dollar. We are beholden to procurement rules and procurement laws. And I don't remember a bid going out on this at all.
You know, on that, to use the purchasing's guidance in the past, there was in the best interest of the county had a play in that. We have in the past not used RFP processes for things much more than 2,500 because we knew about the history of that agency or that person, and so we didn't do an RFP. For, I guess, a half a dozen times this past year because of that.
Well, we received exceptions there was an exception letter from the purchasing department in that one,
Right.
and that was not present on this item. So.
Right. So there's some question. I mean, we're looking at the change that was made last year and where it could be exempted. It's saying source selection of entertainment, attractions, booth vendors, and sponsors. Now, the question here is does this fall under the booth vendor, or is this more a manager of the booth vendors? I'm not really sure where this falls.
So for me, I can speak somewhat to this as a vendor at a farmer's market in the local community. And it was something that the city managed. And as soon as the Chamber of Commerce was willing to take it over, just because it's such a niche, and I'm just specifically talking about item 13 here, right? As it pertains, it's not an easy thing to do, to find these vendors that are willing to come in and do. And so I do think that's a little bit of discretionary, right? Because it's difficult to find the group that's willing to manage this portion as it pertains to farmers markets, right? And keeping it also to farmers markets, right? Because then it expands and it becomes, I'm selling pillowcases and I'm selling, right? And it just becomes really a hard thing logistically to manage. And so I'm thrilled that we have somebody willing to do it for sure, knowing the history of the county fair that we have had in the past is such a challenge. And I know you're privy to that, and so is Tom, but as it pertains to this item, you know.
And I agree. I think they did a fantastic job last year. I have no problem with that. But if they're going to gain financially from it, I think we have an obligation to at least ask for bids or sign a multi-year contract on those bids. And if nobody returns a bid except for one person, I'm more than happy to sign a bid for that. I just didn't see a request for bids. I haven't seen a request for bids. And so it's like, is there someone else, considering we get half of that money, it's like, is there someone else in the community that would have said, I'll give you 70% of that money, right? And so it's kind of just this idea of making sure we've done our stewardship as stewards of it. So I totally agree. I've got no problem. Even if only one person returned a bid, we could at least say we asked for it. But this is,
I think from my perspective, from the purchasing perspective, it's really a question of whether this falls under the category of a booth vendor or of a management contract.
management contract.
If it's a booth vendor, then we're covered under the exemption. If this is a management contract, then I agree that it would need to get competitive bids. I'm just not sure where this falls.
Would this also qualify for purchasing officers who've made a determination that in the best interest of the county and history that's been shown, it's not necessary for an RFP as we've done in the past?
Well, potentially any purchase could be made an exemption if there's a compelling case for it. I'm not sure there is a compelling case in the situation.
And we could, I mean, because it's only bids, we could be a very short time. So for example, we could put out a request for bids today that closes Monday, and we could put this on next week's agenda and have crossed these T's and dotted these I's. But it's like, if you wanted to get started February 1st, then we probably shouldn't have waited until the 25th to put it on the agenda without asking for a bid.
So to address some of that, we looked at this provision, booth vendors, and it was our interpretation that this would be the type of contract that would be covered under that exception. That may have been an explanation for the reason why we didn't get bids, because we thought we were already covered. The second reason is because it's uncertain how much money they will get in this contract. The value of this contract is unknown. It depends on them getting the vendors to come fill it. So
do we know how much it was last year?
It was 10,800. So it was over the 10,000. It's uncertain. We can anticipate that would be the same. So for those factors and for those reasons, we didn't go to bid because there's some uncertainty plus our interpretations. But it's obviously your prerogative. If you'd like to continue this, we'd be happy to do that.
Plus, I mean, the next meeting is on February 1st, which if you want to get started February 1st, we could literally vote on it February 1st and you could get started February 1st. So I don't think it actually pushes back the timeline at all to push this back 1 week, ask for a bid for getting basically a bid back from an email that just says, I'm willing to do it for 50%, fulfills our obligation. We can vote on that February 1st and you can still meet your deadline of February 1st. But I feel like then we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's. That's just my personal preference.
And
Go ahead, Tom.
I'm going to say part of that response would be not only would they do for X dollars, but they have the history to be able to do it.
Right.
That would be crucial.
Right, they could put that in the bid. Like I said, it doesn't even have to be a formal bid. It could literally be a reply to an email.
Right.
But I feel like that would make me feel better. That's just my preference. So.
Who else? So today I had someone that was like, hey, I didn't get asked on our last RFP, right? You were there.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you send out an RFP today, we already know kind of what we're doing because we're just trying to do what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of just doing it to do it. I think we're probably okay as what, we've been on item 13 specifically what we're talking about there. But I don't know how those two is 13 and 15 hand in glove, Craig.
Well, he can't handle 13 until we approve 15.
Okay,
in theory,
that
technically.
makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so
it's a little cart before the horse, but it's okay.
Yeah.
okay, but I guess, do you understand what I'm saying? It's like if we're just doing it and we pretty much already have in mind that we know what vendor we're going to use, that's kind of where my heartburn somewhat comes into play, because in my mind, if they've performed well and done everything that they contractually did last year.
On the flip side, if somebody comes forward and said, I would have done that for 40% instead of 50%, they would have an argument against us as a county for having not brought it to bid.
I think what Commissioner Sackledge mentioned, though, is that there's still the factor of, well, this vendor has done it for a couple of years. In theory, they could get us more money than the other guy. So, and that's uncertain, but that's an argument. That could
because
be
I understand what you're saying. Like, we've historically in my prior hat, a guy that wants to build a road for $1 million less that's never built a road, I'm not going to use, right? You know that. But if all the other bids are in line, and so I know the farmer's market world, and I know these guys can perform. And so in my mind, yeah, we'd go through the RFP process just to delay it a week. And you know how I feel about just punting, just
Right.
so
Well,
I
and-
don't know if that helps you.
Right. And well, it does. However, I feel like we're constantly in this scenario that it's like, why couldn't we address this earlier? And I've been asked several times to vote on contracts for the county fair, multiple years in a row, that I didn't feel comfortable voting on because it was the last minute. So it's like it's setting a precedent. Like last year, I literally said I'll vote for it this year, but next year I'd like to see the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And here we are a year later, and I'm being asked to do it again. So I totally see where you're coming from, but like it's time to actually start like sending out a bid and doing what we're supposed to do. So we can disagree, and that's totally fine.
Oh, and I agree. I don't think it's the vendor's fault, and that's what I'm hearing you say. And I think to answer your question, it's because, let's see, you're going to go to Salt Lake for the second time today, this afternoon,
Yeah.
Amelia?
Right.
Right? You're spread thin. We're doing a lot, right? All employees of the county and the commissioners and their policy advisors, they're doing a lot. And so that's the other reason that it's like, just to have to deal with this in a week, I'm kind of like, let's act now. Let's move on and then figure out how we procure this, because I think that in the whole scheme of things, we're really spending a lot of time dealing with things we probably could be doing better things with our time.
I've said my piece. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll move we approve item 13.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Can second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay, that passes 2-1. Thank you. I would, however, in the future, like to see us getting the bids. And like, in fact, if we can get a bid and it's a multi-year bid, then we can solve this problem for years. Right? So next year, like after the county fair in August, like let's do a bid in October and give people plenty of time. And it could be a multi-year, like we could do a 3-year bid and guesstimate it's going to be under the
Right.
30,000, it'll be around $35,000 guesstimate. So we don't need an RFP. We could do the bid in October. We could then sign a 3-year contract. We could contract with them for 3 years and not have to have this discussion again.
And that dovetails into number 15, which is what we're trying to
Makes sense.
change for this next year to address that issue.
Okay. All right. Item number 15.
And this one we had discussed and talked to the purchasing officer, and we're looking at, contrary to what it says on the attachment, instead of a 2-year, we're looking at a 1-year contract to make sure that we're following RFP rules that still are somewhat uncertain at this point.
Yeah, like I just said, we tried to do a multi-year contract so we could address these issues, but we need to go through the RFP process because of the value of a multi-year contract.
Absolutely.
So what we're proposing is their original bid was for 1 year for $25,000 plus $1,000 reimbursement plus 10% bonus on all the sponsorship monies that they bring in. So their original bid, that was the same as last year.
Okay.
That's what we're going to recommend the board, the commission approve this time around, not the multi-year contract that's on your computer, on your agenda.
So
Okay. I'll ask the same questions to the purchasing officer. I know the bid with my understanding was the bid last year was for 1 year. Did we get any bids this year? Did we solicit any bids this year?
Yes, well.
Does this qualify for the exemption? Same questions.
The bids were solicited. This was the only response.
Fantastic. Okay. Perfect.
So I'll make a
So, and I'm
motion.
fine with the 1-year contract because then it doesn't hit that threshold requiring an RFP.
Right. Okay. But next year we'll work on an RFP for
Yeah, in
multi-year.
October,
so that these-
September.
So you poor guy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there was some administrative headaches this past fall, so it's part of the reason for the delay. But I'll make a motion, we adopt item 15 with a change from what it says in the attachment to 1 year, not 2-year, as you've outlined.
And their original bid, which is $25,000, $1,000 reimbursement, and then the 10% bonus.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Thank you, guys. And like I said, you guys do a fantastic job. We just need to cross T's, dot I's multiple years in a way. And I would love to
Craig's-
get you a multi-year contract so we don't have to do this every year.
Greg's been a city councilman. He gets it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Gets it, so.
So number 19, did I?
Yep, number 19.
And that was going to be more of an administrative change, not a change in the
I
amount.
think did we leave that on consent, just changing the title? Was that the,
Number 19? No,
Yeah.
we
Oh, no, that
held
was
we held
separate.
it.
okay.
Thank you, Adam Beck, County Attorney's Office. So it won't be a change to the title. I spoke with Randy Edwards this morning, and he had one concern. He wanted to make sure that it's clear that he does not speak for American Legion, the national organization, but just for the local organization. And the change would be found on attachment A. It's the very last two words of the attachment, that where it says American Legion, as was mentioned earlier in the meeting, it would say Dean 13, the American Legion. And so if you move to approve this, if we could just have it be subject to that change, and then I can get the updated copy to Alice right after this.
So a motion to approve with the amendment of Dean Mendenhall, Provo Post 13. Name change.
Do I hear a second?
I can second that motion.
All right, it's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes 3-0. 3-0. I think that was all
Yeah,
that
just
I see.
closed session and then.
Let's do general public comment before the closed session. And for general public comment, we have, as a reminder, comments are limited to 2 minutes, and we as a commission during general public comment can't reply. So you can give a comment, but we don't reply. It's just that the comment is on the record. So do we have anybody here for general public comment? Absolutely, come forward. When you come to the mic, just state your name so we can put it in the record, and then you'll after you state your name, you'll have 2 minutes. Thank you.
I thought it was 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Kenneth Michael Pachork. I know about the FEMA funds you're using to launder money, Region 8 disaster. I looked at the Cutler's Inc. I don't know if that ties to the buffering and streaming, cutting the limbs. And then Despain, that area over there, United States of America owns some of that property. So that's like private and federal, and that's not good. And then I want to know who the hedge funds are that, are picking up these water rights. Maybe I can get a FOIA request. Gotta go fast. But I know a lot of money that's being laundered, especially from Ukraine. Everything leads here. And I think it would be wise if you guys unseat yourself, because fraud is fraud. I went to Community Action, and I noticed a nice guy lost his fingers. You build these parks, but you don't help them out, huh? Nothing to say? Oh, you can't say anything. Oh, without your lawyers, or no? Okay. But I wish you, best. I hope you repent, because nothing can stop what's coming. Law, you're not following law. You're following color of law, and that's treasonous. That gold fringe flag, no, this is not maritime, this is not commerce. And you use people and their entities to launder money, and I know all about it, so thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
Is Mike Smith here, or he left? Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other public comment, we'll move into closed session. Thank you.